Okay, so I want to go over the answer key with you guys for this so that way this is a great resource for you guys to use before you take this test. Because remember, there are no redos. So you want to make sure that you do the very, very, very best that you can on this. So here we go. This is your practice quiz that hopefully you guys took advantage of doing. Now, what I would actually recommend that you do is write these down as I go through them. So the first problem says, what is the sum of negative 12 plus negative 20? So what is the sum? Looks like this. It is addition. Now remember, I gave you lots of different ways to solve this. You could draw out negative 12 negative signs and 20 negative signs and then see what happens with all those, if they cancel out or whatever. You could use a number line. All right, so if you used a number line, here's 0. The first one we do is we go down to negative 12, which is on negative 12. Then we go down 20 negatives more, and we land on negative 32. Okay. So there is using a number line. Or if you remember the rule, when you add two numbers with the same sign, you add the numbers. So that's 12 plus 20 is 32. And since they're both negative, it's a negative 32. Think of money. You borrow 12 bucks from your mom. You borrowed $20 from your dad. You've borrowed a total of $32. All right, number 2 does probably get a little bit tricky because the question says, what is 2 4/10 plus a negative 2 5/10 in decimal form? All right, so first step is we have to change 2 4/10 into a decimal. Okay, and if you think about in the decimal world, one method you could do to change fractions to decimals, you divide. So 4 divided by 10, you could do that. So 10 doesn't go into 4, so here's my 0. I add a decimal point and another 0. 10 goes into 40 4 times, and that's 40 with nothing left over. So there's one method. Or as you guys know in the decimal world, the 10th place is right to the right, one place value to the right of the decimal point. So this would be 2 decimal point 4. So that's what that looks like. So now my problem is 2 4/10 plus a negative 2 5/10. Okay. Now, when you add two numbers that have different signs, a positive and a negative, you don't add them, you subtract them. That's the process. All right, so remember, when you're adding or subtracting decimals, you've got to line up the dot and give it all you got. So 2.5 minus 2.4. And now I'm going to subtract these. 5 minus 4 is 1. Bring down the decimal point. 2 minus 2 is 0. And now you go back. Which number's bigger? Well, 2 5/10 is bigger than 2 4/10, and it's a negative. So my answer is negative 0 1/10. That's my answer. Okay, number 3, which one's larger or which one's less? Which one's less? Negative 15 plus 28 or 30 plus negative 18? So first of all, you can solve these however you want. Okay, I'm going to stick with the rule. When adding two numbers with different signs, you don't add, you subtract. So 28 minus 15 comes out to be 13. 28 is bigger than 15 and it's a positive. So this is a positive 13. Over here, 30 plus negative 18, two different signs. So I'm going to subtract, borrow from that. 10 minus 8 is 2. 2 minus 1 is 1. And 30 is bigger, so this is a positive. So if you look at this, 13 is greater than 12. So therefore, 30 plus negative 18 is less. Okay. Number 4, circle P for a positive sum or N for a negative sum. So yay for you. You don't have to solve these. All right. So if you look at this, here we go. You could add these, sure. Or look, which number's bigger? 32 is bigger than 22 and 32 is a negative. So this, your sum would be a negative. Next one, 2 and 5/10 plus negative 2 and 3/10. Well, in order to compare those, you either have to, or to find out which one's going to be bigger to see if it's a positive or negative, you're actually going to have to change it. So negative 2 and 3/5 is actually negative 2 and 6/10, right? So this is really negative 2 and 6/10. Now look, which one's larger? 2 and 6/10 is bigger than 2 and 5/10, and that is a negative. So that means your sum will be on the negative side. Okay, look at this one. All right, here's what I would do. I would combine together your negative numbers. So negative 5/10 plus negative 20 is a negative 20 and 5/10. Okay, now, so those cancel out and I'm adding negative 20 and 5/10. All right, now if you were to add these together, you could go through and do the process where you go adding two different sign numbers. So I subtract them and give it the sign of the larger number, which is a negative. So that would be a negative 1/10. So my answer again is a negative. And D, guess what? All right, these are both negative. We know no matter what, when you add two negative numbers together, you're still gonna get a negative, all right? Now, you guys, I have to throw out a disclaimer. These problems are not going to be exactly like the problems you'll see on your quiz, but it's just like it. So that way you have something to refer to. All right, here we go. Last one. Bob flies a drone 18 3/4 foot above the ground. So that must mean that this is a positive 18 3/4. He increases its elevations by 2.5 feet. Increase means he goes up. So we're going to add 2.5 feet. He notices a plane flying by, so he changes the elevation of the drone by negative 12 and 4/10. So we're going to add a negative 12 and 4/10. So here is my expression. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to add these together. Now, when adding fractions, remember what I told you? I like to add them this way in column form. So first step, I can't add my fractions because I need a common denominator. So 2 and 4, so 4 or 2 and 4 both go into 4. So my denominator is going to change to 4. This stays the same. 2 times 2 is 4, so this changes to 2/4. So 3 plus 2 is 5, and my denominator stays the same. 5/4 is actually 1 and 1/4. Now I'm going to add my whole numbers. 18 plus 2 is 20. Now combine those together. I have 21 and 1/4. So now my expression is 21 and 1/4 plus a negative 12 and 4/10. Okay. Again, you have a choice. You can either, in order to add these, you have to have them in the same form. So either all decimal form or all fraction form, your choice. So I'm going to change them to decimal form because it's easier. So I got to change 1/4 to a decimal. So to change fractions to decimals, you can either make them out of like a tenth, or you can divide because this is division. So 1 divided by 4, 4 doesn't go into 1, so I add a decimal point and a 0. 4 goes into 10 2 times, which is 8. Subtract, that's a 2, add another 0, bring it down. 4 goes into 25 times. So this is actually 21 and, oops, sorry, I should have finished that, and 25 hundredths plus negative 12 and 4/10. Now remember, when you add two numbers with different signs, you don't add them, you subtract. So we're going to line up the dot and give it all we got. Okay, so add a placeholder of 0. 5 minus 0 is 5. I can't take 4 from 2, so I borrow from this 1, which makes it a 0. And this becomes 12. 12 minus 4 is 8. Bring down the decimal point. I can't take 2 from 0, so I borrow from the 2, which makes that a 1. And this becomes a 10. 10 minus 2 is 8. And then if you look, this number is larger than this, so this is a positive. So the drone is now 8 85 of a foot above ground. Okay, all right. So again, like I said, this is a good review for you guys to look at. Rewind it, play it again, play the parts that you're not quite sure of. Doesn't matter, but please remember, this will be different than your actual quiz. So don't go to your quiz and write in -32 for 1, -0 1/10 for 2, because their answers are going to be different. They're different problems, but the problems are similar. All right, so there you have it. Please take your time because remember, there's no redos.